What's up, everybody? We're back for another video. Before we get into it, I just kind of want to start off by saying I've been cheating. I've been cheating on my girl, my trusty Fuji X-T5. I didn't think it was ever gonna happen. I love this camera so much. I mean, we were inseparable. We did everything together. But then another camera came along and we started hanging out a little bit. And the more I learned about this camera, the more I found myself wanting to hang out with it even more. And after a while, I really think it's time to be the good person and just dump my X-T5 for the new Sony A7C2. Now, luckily, these are just cameras and not people, and I can relax and not feel like a horrible individual. But in this video, I just want to talk to you about why I'm leaving a platform for a new platform and kind of walk you through my process and really just explore this Sony A7C2 because there's honestly not a lot about it online. And to me, this is my perfect camera. So with that, let's just dive right in right now. So a little backstory on kind of how this happened. So Fuji has always been my go-to stills camera. Take it with me everywhere. This is my pairing, this TT Artisan 35 f.95. If you've ever seen my Instagram or whatever, I mean, almost every photo I've taken has been on this camera. Take it with me everywhere, no matter where I go, set, family vacations, anything. I just love the look of this camera and this sensor. Now, when it comes to video, that's where things kind of threw me for a loop. Now, I started a little side YouTube channel doing stuff with my wife where we kind of explore some family-friendly vacation destinations and kind of walk you through some fun stuff to do that are more kid-friendly. Now, I started and was like, well, I mean, I take photos on this, so I should just shoot video on this. The video specs on the X-T5 aren't bad. But after doing one of these, I quickly realized, you know, the low light capability on this camera is not quite that fantastic. And realistically, the autofocus on some of my Fuji lenses is pretty terrible. And when you start to factor in how kind of one and done things can be when you're talking about just kind of shooting dock scenario stuff, you're only gonna get one chance. And, you know, manual focusing is not always the best. Autofocus is definitely a little bit better there. I found myself feeling like I needed to find something else. And if you know me, I am the person who literally has to look at every option that exists. And you know, we had an FX3 here and some other cameras, and I really was thinking about doing the ZV-E1 to try things, but what I found myself doing realistically more than anything once it got, you know, bright daylight is using the EVF. And I found that to be an invaluable part of shooting, and shooting without, you know, trying to see a monitor. And I just needed the EVF, I felt like, to be able to shoot. And that is still very true. I feel like had I have gone a direction without an EVF, I'd be very sad right now. But, you know, we got the new Fuji XM5 and honestly bought and returned a couple cameras trying to find the right one. And then weirdly stumbled across a video on this A7C2. Now, first off, I'm kind of stupid in the fact that I kind of like a retro looking camera from the exterior. That's why I really liked Fuji's offerings. And this kind of ticked that box. And second, I really like a full frame sensor. A lot of times on my Fuji, I'd be running around with a speed booster with say like a Canon FD, and it just added bulk to everything. And it really came down to size. This camera, the X-T5, is very small and compact. It was easy to just sling on my shoulder and really run around with a small amount of ND and like a DJI Mic 2 on there and do anything. Hiking, scaling, you know, rock sides down to waterfalls. A big bulky camera just isn't that system for me, especially when you're trying to wrangle kids and like carry stuff that isn't just camera gear at the same time. So this A7C2, if you don't know about this camera, it is very light and compact. We added this little small rig grip on it that has a Arca plate on the bottom. So I feel like this setup really is lightweight. It's about as light as the X-T5, but you gain full frame capability. I think a better EVF. The mic shoe is really nice to be cable free when you're running the like DJI Mic 2 and some other things like that. Not only that, the switch between S&Q video and photo is just so easy and such a breeze once you've kind of set up your menus in camera. And the full frame and the low light and the in-body image stabilization, the autofocus, all are just leaps and bounds above what the Fuji can offer. Now, my biggest sadness when I got into this was like, I'm gonna hate the stills. I had a Sony A7R2. Sony wasn't the look. That's originally what got me to switch to Fuji, and I've been on that platform for, almost 5 years now. So I started watching some videos online from some people digging into some creative looks that you can do in camera, modifying some of the parameters to emulate, some of the Fuji looks like classic chrome, Velvia, Acros. And that to me is really what sold me on this camera. I'm not a guy who wants to take stuff into Lightroom. I'll do that occasionally if it's gonna be a photo that I blow up. Speaking of which, 33 megapixel sensor on this really led me down this path versus something like a A7S3 or an FX3 with its 12 megapixel sensor. I have blown up several photos to print in our house, and this really does blow up well when you're talking about, trying to edit the raw stills and then, do whatever you want with those. So, not sad at all, and I'm just gonna get into the photo side of things first. So I'm gonna just show you some photos we took recently on a trip down to San Diego that we shot with this. And really what we did is I started with kind of our classic chrome recipe and then modified it a little bit in camera from some stuff that I read online. And really what I do is I just transfer straight through the app and go right into VSCO and just make, some of my other changes. Now, the bigger part of the camera is the lens. Now for me, when I shoot photo, I always like a manual lens for the most part. And this lens kind of helped sell this camera because I like a lightweight small lens. So this is called the Ultra Lab No Nikkor. So this is basically a Nikkor ripoff, and it's a 35mm f1.4, and it looks vintage. It looks like the old Nikkor lenses. I love it. It's got loads of character wide open, a lot of swirl, crazy bokeh, great skin. I pair this with just a 1/8 black Pro Mist, and that's how I like to shoot my photos. I really feel like the blend of the creative profile plus the lens, the filter, and then taking it into VSCO and just adding a little grain structure really helps kind of sell that film aesthetic that I personally like, but I really don't like working with film anymore. And I really like that about the Fujifilm, and I was worried that this could maybe not do that as well. And after one solid trip with this camera, I can absolutely say that it does, and I'm super happy, and I don't think I really have a need to go back to the Fuji for really anything. Now, when we're talking about video, that's where this just starts to jump way ahead of the Fuji in terms of its capabilities. The autofocus in this is absolutely absurd. How it tracks objects, it is almost intuitive to what you're thinking it focuses on. The parameters in which you can set to focus, speed, how it transitions on and off subjects. It's all just really intuitive. Doing stuff for our channel, that's our travel channel, we bought just a standard, I think it's the Sigma 16-28 and the 28-70. I just love those lenses. They're small, compact, they're 2/8, they're plenty shallow on full frame, good close focus, autofocus is banging. And then from there, I found myself going into lots of restaurants and dark areas, having experiences, and the low light in the Fuji was just not it. This camera, I can feel comfortable shooting almost at 20,000 ISO, and by the time you get into resolve and at just a very mild amount of noise reduction, this, as a single base ISO camera, looks damn near as good as the FX3 when you're talking about low light performance, even on a dual native ISO sensor. So, we'll show a clip right now, kind of going over the FX3, which, I feel like is very clean at 12,800 in the right environment, as long as it's lit well. Going into a no light scenario, it still has a little bit of noise. Both of them clean up very well. The dynamic range is very impressive on this camera. Now, so we measure this against the Mini LF, which, at 800, it's base native ISO. That's where you're getting, plus and minus a very similar amount of over and underexposure. We shot the A7C2 at 2000, which I feel like is a closer approximation of getting closer to the same over and under. And, looking at these back to back, it's really crazy to see a non-RAW format that's just 422 10-bit, in an MP4 in log, getting 5 stops over fully recoverable when you're in something like, say, a 16-bit RAW codec in the Alexa Mini, really just pulling 6 and just a little over 6. So to me, that's a win on this camera. And this, I feel like, does have a little bit more shadow capability. And, you know, we're talking keeping those shadows clean than the Mini LF. So realistically, I mean, what that tells me is like, just protect your highlights a little more than say like a Mini LF. But if you have no experience shooting with the Mini LF, it's pointless to even compare them. You know, I would just say if you really want the most out of this camera and log, just protect your highlights a little extra because there is a good amount of room for shadows to bring back. And it's very impressive. I think you can get away with a lot in this camera. Good definition in your color in the skies while still retaining shadows very well, having good skin tones. I think it's a really good comparison, and to be personally impressed shooting this against a Mini LF. I personally did a shoot for Meta here in Seattle where, you know, it was Mini LF, you know, running some of our Tokina Vista primes and some zooms, and I had a very complex shot, you know, with a small crew trying to track somebody down a staircase, you know, with a zoom, you know, kind of didn't have a spotter, was trying to pull focus myself, you know, and we all get in these positions, it's like one-man band type scenario, and it was hard to kind of like get everything going. Did a couple takes, I was happy with how it turned out, but it wasn't like fantastic. I was like, let me just try this real quick. You know, I got my little Sigma, took this camera literally in my hand, and just ran down the stairs and did kind of like a sweep. I mean, I don't know if you could tell the difference between the two cameras, and this was infinitely easier to do and took like no time. And I really feel like this is a great second thing just to have on set with you. You know, there are times when it will cut in just fine in post, but you can absolutely take another camera if it's gonna be easier. At the end of the day, you know, you might have more time later to light a scene better if you can get your shot faster, you know, in the current scenario that you're in. So I really like the tool set and the features of this camera and really how far you can push the image. Now, after all of that, kind of heard why I am really enjoying this camera. The price on this is the other thing that's very surprising. $2,200 to get a camera that really does all the things I've ever wanted my Fuji to do, and really does a lot of stuff I wish other video cameras would do. And we've been using this a lot for some of our BTS stuff on our channel, our reels, my photos, our other YouTube channel, travel, cutting in on big jobs. I really think this is an insanely versatile camera that really I haven't seen a whole lot of people talking about. So that is our video. Don't hate me for cheating. I swear I'm a good dude. A7C2, if you haven't been looking at it, I think you should. It really is an impressive camera and one that I'm personally very, very happy to own. I haven't been really excited about some camera stuff in a long time, and this is one of those things that really gets me excited about filmmaking again. So with that, thanks for watching. Thanks for sticking around. Hope you enjoyed this video on the A7C2. Remember to like and subscribe, and we'll catch you on the next one.